For nearly 4 decades, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei ruled the Islamic Republic of Iran from the shadows, financing Hamas, arming Hezbollah, and building a terror network that stretched from Beirut to Baghdad to the shores of the Red Sea. He was the architect of Iran's nuclear ambitions, the man who ordered the massacre of 30,000 of his own citizens in January 2026, and the single greatest obstacle to peace in the Middle East for an entire generation. And on the morning of February 28, 2026, the combined intelligence power of the Central Intelligence Agency and Israel's Mossad finally caught up with him, not in some remote hideout, but in the heart of his own capital city, Tehran. This is the story of how the most protected leader in the Middle East was tracked, cornered, and eliminated in broad daylight, and how 2 intelligence agencies pulled off what many believed was impossible. To understand how the CIA and Mossad found Khamenei, you first have to understand just how hard this man was to find, because the supreme leader of Iran had spent decades perfecting the art of disappearing. After Israel's 12-day war against Iran in June 2025, during which American B-2 bombers obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities at Fordow and Natanz, Khamenei became a ghost. He withdrew from public life almost entirely, cancelling meetings with Iran's elected president, ending regular appearances, and retreating deep underground into a network of bunkers and tunnels beneath Tehran. His primary bunker was located in a compound in central Tehran, and it was engineered to survive anything the modern world could throw at it, buried so deep underground that the elevator ride to reach him took more than 5 minutes. Reports described the facility as a super bunker, located in the Lavizan district, protected by anti-aircraft systems and connected by an extensive web of interlocking tunnels that formed an underground nerve center for the regime. Some intelligence assessments suggested the bunker was buried between 90 and 100 meters below the surface, deeper than many subway systems, deeper even than Iran's fortified nuclear facility at Fordow. But the physical depth of his hiding place was only one layer of Khamenei's security. The human layer was equally extraordinary and equally paranoid. Senior Iranian officials who were summoned to meet the supreme leader were transported in blacked-out vehicles and then blindfolded for the final leg of the journey into the tunnels, so that even Iran's own top leaders could not identify where Khamenei was hiding. An Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps member confirmed to Iran International that Ali Larijani, the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council and one of the most powerful men in the country, was blindfolded before being taken to meet Khamenei ahead of a diplomatic trip to Oman. Khamenei's 2 sons managed the regime's daily operations from outside the bunker, Mojtaba handling contacts with senior regime figures, and Masoud managing routine office affairs, creating yet another buffer between the supreme leader and the outside world. Multiple entrances to known underground facilities in Tehran and Isfahan had been covered over or buried in early February 2026, as satellite imagery confirmed, specifically to complicate any attempt at aerial bunker-buster strikes. In short, Khamenei had built the most elaborate personal security apparatus of any leader on Earth. A man who could not be found, could not be reached, and could not be killed by any conventional means. But the CIA had been watching, and their intelligence penetration inside Iran had become far more developed than anyone in Tehran understood. According to 5 people familiar with the operation who spoke to CNN, American and Israeli intelligence agencies had been secretly monitoring Khamenei for months, tracking where he lived, whom he met with, how he communicated, and where he might retreat under threat of attack. The surveillance operation was methodical and patient, with analysts mapping Khamenei's daily patterns and identifying the rare moments when the supreme leader might be vulnerable, because even the most paranoid man in the world has routines he cannot fully escape. As far back as June 2025, during the planning for the American strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, President Trump had publicly boasted that the United States knew exactly where Khamenei was hiding and could have killed him at any time. A former U.S. official later confirmed that this was not bluster. The intelligence was real, and it was based on the same network of sources that the CIA would rely upon 9 months later when it mattered most. But in June 2025, Trump had decided not to pull the trigger. An Israeli assassination plan targeting Khamenei was vetoed by the American president who wanted to preserve the option of diplomacy with Tehran. That decision gave the CIA 9 more months to refine its intelligence, and according to officials briefed on the operation, the information only got better with time, more precise, more confident, more granular in its detail. The Mossad was running its own parallel operation, building on the institutional expertise it had developed through a series of stunning, targeted killings that had reshaped the Middle East over the previous 2 years. In September 2024, Israeli intelligence had tracked Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah to an underground command center beneath Beirut's southern suburbs. A man who, like Khamenei, blindfolded his own visitors and hadn't been seen above ground since the 2006 Lebanon war. Israeli jets dropped over 80 bombs to penetrate that bunker and kill Nasrallah, and the operational lessons learned from that strike, the intelligence techniques, the precision targeting, the ability to locate leaders buried deep underground, were directly applied to the hunt for Khamenei. Israeli military intelligence had also eliminated Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, Mohammed Deif, and dozens of senior commanders across Lebanon, Gaza, and Yemen, each kill refining the art of what analysts now called precision decapitation. By early 2026, as the United States amassed the largest military buildup in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq, the CIA and Mossad were keeping tabs not just on Khamenei, but on every senior political and military leader in the Iranian regime. They knew that Iran's top officials rarely gathered in the same place as the supreme leader, a deliberate security measure designed to prevent a single strike from wiping out the entire leadership. And they were watching for the one moment when that discipline might slip. Then, in the final days of February 2026, the breakthrough came. The CIA learned that a meeting of Iran's most senior military and political officials had been scheduled for Saturday morning, February 28th, at a leadership compound in central Tehran. The compound housed the offices of the Supreme Leader, the Iranian Presidency, and the Supreme National Security Council, a symbolic and operational center of the regime's power, located in the heart of the capital. Israeli intelligence had independently identified many of the officials who would attend: Revolutionary Guard Commander Mohammad Pakpour, Defense Minister Aziz Nasirzadeh, Military Council Head Ali Shamkhani, IRGC Aerospace Force Commander Sayed Majid Mousavi, and Deputy Intelligence Minister Mohammad Shirazi, among others. But the most critical piece of intelligence came from the CIA. The agency confirmed, with what officials described as high fidelity, that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei himself would be present at the compound that morning. This was the moment the CIA and Mossad had been waiting for, the rarest of windows when the most paranoid leader in the world would be in a known location, at a known time, surrounded by the very officials whose elimination would decapitate the entire regime in a single blow. There was just one complication. The original plan called for the joint American and Israeli strike to begin at night, under the cover of darkness, which is standard doctrine for large-scale military operations against heavily defended targets. But the meeting was scheduled for Saturday morning Tehran time, which meant the window would only be open during broad daylight, forcing a decision that would rewrite the rules of modern warfare. At the highest levels of both governments, the decision was made to shift the entire timing of Operation Epic Fury, the largest joint military operation in American and Israeli history, to capitalize on this intelligence. Senior Israeli officials flew to Washington to coordinate the mission in the final days before the strike, ensuring that every element of the massive operation would be synchronized around the CIA's intelligence on Khamenei's location. On Thursday, February 26th, American envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner called President Trump from Geneva, where a final round of nuclear negotiations with Iran had collapsed. Tehran refused to fully dismantle its enrichment capability, and the diplomatic window slammed shut. Flying to Texas the following day aboard Air Force One, Trump consulted Republican Senators Ted Cruz and John Cornyn about whether Iran must be stopped by whatever necessary action, though he did not reveal the specific operation that was already being set into motion. By that point, the intelligence community had already locked in the Saturday morning meeting in Tehran as the centerpiece of the entire operation, the kill shot that would change the Middle East forever. At approximately 6 o'clock in the morning, Israel time on February 28th, Israeli Air Force jets roared off their runways, armed with long-range precision-guided munitions designed to strike targets hundreds of miles away. The strike package was surprisingly small. Relatively few aircraft were needed, because the intelligence was precise enough that overwhelming force was unnecessary when surgical accuracy could do the job. Simultaneously, across the Middle East, American forces activated Operation Epic Fury, launching Tomahawk cruise missiles from warships in the Persian Gulf, HIMARS rockets from land-based launchers, and for the first time in combat, low-cost one-way attack drones from Task Force Scorpion Strike. The opening American strikes targeted Iran's integrated air defense network, radar systems, and command and control infrastructure. The goal was to blind and deafen the entire country so that the Israelis could reach their target in Tehran without interference. 2 hours and 5 minutes after the Israeli jets took off, at approximately 9:40 in the morning Tehran time, long-range missiles struck the leadership compound in the heart of the Iranian capital. The attack hit multiple buildings simultaneously, one containing the senior national security officials gathered for their scheduled meeting, and another nearby building where Khamenei himself was located. According to Israeli media, Khamenei was underground at the compound but had made a fatal error. He was not in one of the two deepest bunkers that only American 30,000-pound bunker-buster bombs could have penetrated. An Israeli source told CNN that the overly cautious supreme leader had paradoxically felt less vulnerable during daylight hours and had let down his guard, a miscalculation that would cost him his life. Israeli jets dropped 30 bombs on the compound in the opening minutes of the assault, obliterating the entire complex and everyone inside it. At the same time, strikes were carried out at least 2 other locations across Tehran to ensure that no senior leader could escape. A coordinated wave designed to eliminate every possible exit route. The Israeli Defense Forces later confirmed that within 60 seconds of striking Khamenei, they had killed 40 key Iranian military commanders, including the heads of the Revolutionary Guards, the Defense Ministry, and the military chief of staff. Ali Shamkhani, one of the most powerful men in Iran, and the official who had been blindfolded just days earlier to meet Khamenei in his supposedly impenetrable bunker, was killed alongside the supreme leader he had served for decades. Members of Khamenei's own family, his daughter, grandchild, son-in-law, and daughter-in-law, perished in the destruction of the compound. Shortly before midnight Tehran time, an Israeli official confirmed that Khamenei's body had been recovered from the rubble and positively identified, and a photograph of the remains was reportedly shown to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. President Trump took to Truth Social to announce the death, writing that Khamenei was one of the most evil people in history and that he was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems. There was not a thing he or the other leaders that have been killed along with him could do. Iranian state media initially denied the supreme leader was dead, with the foreign ministry insisting Khamenei was safe and sound, and state news agencies claiming he was steadfast and firm in commanding the field. But early on the morning of March 1st, 2026, Iran's Supreme National Security Council and state television finally confirmed what the world already knew. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran for 36 years, was dead. A news anchor delivered the announcement in tears, and the government declared 40 days of national mourning and 7 days of public holidays across the country. In the streets of Tehran, the reaction split Iran's soul in two. Thousands flooded Engelab Square in grief, waving flags and chanting that the Lion of God has been killed, while in other neighborhoods, Iranians danced, set off fireworks, and toppled statues of the Islamic Republic's founders. One young Iranian man, speaking in a video smuggled out of the country, captured the sheer magnitude of the moment with 3 simple words. Hello, New World. The operation that killed Khamenei was later described by Israeli analysts as perhaps the largest targeted killing in the history of warfare, a strike that eliminated an entire regime's leadership in a single morning, executed in broad daylight at a distance of over 1,000 miles. It was the product of months of patient CIA surveillance, years of Mossad operational refinement, and a single piece of intelligence that arrived at exactly the right moment. Proof that no bunker is deep enough, no security detail paranoid enough, and no leader powerful enough to hide forever from the reach of American and Israeli intelligence.